Welcome to Tech Confidential's Behind the Money. I'm Kathleen Flynn. I'm here with Todd Alexander from Chadbourne Parke, and we're going to be talking about the ethanol industry and some of the problems facing the ethanol industry. But first, I just want to get a little feel for what your background is, what your role is when you work with companies at Chadbourne Parke.
Thanks, Mary. First, thanks for having me here. Our traditional role was to help plants find equity financing and debt financing to build new facilities to build out our ethanol infrastructure. That's changed dramatically in the last 12 months or so as that financing's dried up, and we're much more active now in helping companies merge to create economies of scale, as well as helping companies manage the expectations of their lenders and lender groups figure out how best to restructure their debt given the troubles in the industry.
And there are a lot of troubles in the ethanol industry, and in fact, some companies, including one publicly traded one, are going bankrupt. What's wrong? What are the underlying drivers behind the problems?
Yeah, one of the largest producers, Verisun Energy, filed for bankruptcy a few weeks ago. There's several problems. It depends on the company, but so it's not a simple answer. But the one problem is there's been a lot of construction delays and construction problems. Another problem has been lack of access to capital. Just like all other companies out there that rely on large working capital facilities, this industry can't access the capital it needs to properly hedge its book. And then there's also been some problems with declining oil prices and increasing corn prices, which have squeezed production margins.
To what extent are these macroeconomically driven issues, or are they more particular to the ethanol industry itself? Are there fundamental flaws in the ethanol industry?
I think generally the ethanol industry long-term is viable as long as it maintains its political support. The short-term problems that we're having now is we had just historically wild swings in the price of corn, which these facilities really didn't have the proper capital structure to manage properly. And we also saw some people speculate on the price of corn, which has caused some of the larger producers to really face the cliff, and some of them have fallen off.
Are there opportunities for mergers and acquisitions? Is there a bunch of consolidation going on in the ethanol industry?
There's some consolidation going on, but I think there's a fantastic opportunity for consolidation. The ethanol business is a commodity business, like mining or oil, other agricultural businesses, and you would expect that the industry would consolidate to capitalize on those economies of scale. And the interesting thing is we have not seen that yet. I think in large part because there's a failure of these companies to be able to access the capital needed to consolidate, as well as some political uncertainty surrounding the industry with the administration changing over and with some environmental groups taking a much tougher look on biofuels.
And in fact, President-elect Barack Obama has said that energy is going to be a big issue in his administration. How do you see the political landscape changing, and how might that affect ethanol?
Of course, difficult to say at this point. Certainly the election of Obama was looked at more kindly than McCain, if McCain would have been elected, given McCain's prior stance in opposition to ethanol. But I think part of it's going to just depend on how well the economy is doing and where the country decides to focus the subsidies, because the industry itself is really a creature of the political system, as most of the energy infrastructure is. And at this point, it's tough to say how much emphasis Obama is going to put on biofuels as opposed to other types of alternative energy.
The people are talking about a carbon cap and trade system. How does that affect ethanol?
That's a very interesting question, because the part of the environmental community's reluctance to get behind corn-based ethanol, which is primarily what we use in the United States, is their view that it's really not the best way to minimize the release of carbon into the environment. And the ethanol industry has recently formed a new coalition to try to educate people to its side of the story. And I think it is overall it's a net positive, but certainly not as positive as sugar-based ethanol, which is what people use overseas, primarily in Brazil, and hopefully the second generation ethanol producers that are going to make ethanol out of things like municipal waste and wood and switchgrass.
Last question before we let you go. What's your outlook for '09? What kind of deal making do you think we'll see in the ethanol industry?
I think we're going to continue to experience tight margins, which at some point will force people to create consolidated larger entities that are able to better manage their working capital facilities and take advantage of those economies of scale. But it may take until the second quarter of next year till we see an accelerated pace of mergers.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much, Todd Alexander from Chadbourne Parke. And thank you for watching Tech Confidential's Behind the Money. I'm Mary Kathleen Flynn.